This is my city. These are my people. I've seen a lot of things in this town. Things I don't like. Bad people taking advantage of the weak. Good people down on their luck. Innocent people suffering. I talk to God a lot. Sometimes he talks back. So I ask him, when are you going to do something about all this? You know what his answer was? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. My name is Habakkuk. This is my story.
Well, good morning. That's what we're going to center on today. It's Father's Day, so happy Father's Day. And I don't know if you remember back to when your children were little running around your house. My kids, at least, I'm sure yours also, had amazing questions. So many questions. So many afternoons answering the question, why? And I had no idea. Dad, why is the sky blue? Son, I barely made it through high school. I don't know. And college didn't give me the answers either. Dad, why did this happen? Why is it like this? And yet now as an older guy, I find myself on the end that my son was on, asking God, why? Why is this happening? It may be something as silly as like the comedian Stephen Wright who asked, why is it that we drive on a parkway and park in our driveway? Why is that? You might find yourself asking crazy questions like, is there really a thing called jumbo shrimp? Really? Jumbo shrimp? Well, the one that I struggled with is, why when someone throws something your way, they say heads up? No, heads down. And so we're going to look at some questions, not those easy ones. Really, we're going to look at the hard ones. And I think our day has really been set up with that, hasn't it? We've loved Kathy's singing. I didn't like so much Kathy's praying because it's about issues that are close to my heart that are just hard to sit with. God, why are these things happening to our friends? Why are they struggling? Ken said, it's like it's a harder time right now, and it is a harder time. So maybe like Habakkuk, which we'll be looking at the next 3 weeks that I'm here with you, you'll find yourself like him asking the hard questions. God, why are good things happening? Or why are bad things happening to good people, and yet good things seem to happen to people who aren't good? His driving question, maybe one that you're sitting with right now, his big question he asks is, why doesn't God seem fair? Have you ever asked that, God, why is it that you don't seem fair? He begins his book and he asks this question. He says, how long, O Lord, must I call for your help? But, and remember me, you do not listen. Do you ever feel that, God? How long must I call for help, but you don't listen? I cry out violence, but you don't save. Why do you look at injustice? Why do you make me look at injustice, God? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me, and there is strife and conflicts abound. He's saying this, and we find ourselves on June 17, 2018, maybe asking kind of the same question. God, why don't you seem fair? God, why aren't you listening? Why is it that people who aren't following you, they prosper, and I've been following you, and my life is kind of a mess right now? God, I'm working hard, and yet I'm just really struggling. God, I don't get it. Why would someone in their 40s come down with cancer and leave behind little kids? God, why would someone who's a police officer or a first responder run into harm's way and end up being killed, and the person who killed them, you hear about their life and think, yeah, I would have done it differently, God. What's happening? Why is it not fair? I've talked with some of you. I know your stories. You find yourself wondering, God, I raised my kids the way that I thought you wanted me to, and now that they have kids of their own, they're not following you like I thought they would. What gives? Why isn't it working the way that I thought it would work? My wife and I we had our anniversary 2 days ago, our 27th wedding anniversary, and we were thinking back, and we remember all the good times, but as you sit and listen and talk, you remember that there were also some really times of angst and difficulties also. We remember when we decided it was time to have children, and yet it wasn't on God's time frame. And we started to get to the point that we didn't like going to church on Mother's Day because it was just a difficult day. We've been trying for a few years, and my wife every month was coming to the point where she realized that she wasn't pregnant again. And we find ourselves saying, God, why isn't it working the way that we thought it would work? And then we found people who were pregnant that were angry they were pregnant. We found teenagers who were upset. And we found people who were aborting their kids. We said, God, this just doesn't seem fair. It's not sense-worthy. It doesn't make sense. And God, if I'm honest with you, you don't seem like you're very fair. Well, that's Habakkuk. It's 3 chapters, 3 tiny chapters, filled with a guy who's struggling with a strong faith, but eyes that don't make sense of what he sees. And he finds himself saying, God, you know, I believe in my heart, but I don't believe when I see what I see, it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't seem congruent, so I don't know what to do with this. I'm really struggling. If I'm honest, God, it just seems like you're not very fair. And it's hard to say that in church. You may be wondering, gosh, we invited Scott here, now he's saying God's not fair. Is it okay? Maybe I won't be back for the finishing of the book. But I just want to share with you where I'm struggling, and maybe you're struggling also, because that's where Habakkuk was. Habakkuk was a book that's written in the Bible. It's just 3 chapters. He was known as one of the 12 minor prophets. He never made it to the big leagues. You know, he didn't get the call to the majors. He didn't get the Nike contract. Never got the water drink supplement commercial. He just was one of the minor prophets. There were 12 of the minor prophets. They're near the end of the Old Testament, the First Testament. And of the 12, we probably know the least about Habakkuk. So he's one of the minor prophets. He's one of the minor prophets. All we do know is that he was probably a temple musician. And somewhere along the line, he became a priest and a prophet. And so you're saying, so what the heck is a prophet? Well, a prophet is a guy who God comes to and says, I want you to go tell the people this. Here's my message as God to you, not just for you, but for you to go give it to the people. And so Habakkuk would hear from God, and then he'd go and say, thus saith the Lord, and he'd prophesy, sharing what God had given him, give the message, be a messenger for God, basically be a conduit of giving the message from God to the people. Except that when God gave the message to Habakkuk, Habakkuk listened and he said, oh, I don't like that message. And God, I got to be honest with you, I don't think the people are going to like it either. And so I got to sit here and wrestle with you a little bit because I'm struggling that why would you even say this? This doesn't make sense. We don't know much about the time when this book was written. It was written somewhere around 600 BC. But in this time, we do know this. The people were corrupt. Even the good people were becoming corrupt. The bad people were really bad, and the good people weren't that good either. And they were struggling, they were wrestling, they were wicked. It kind of looked like maybe you're watching on MSNBC or Fox News last night. It kind of looked like that. A place where people were wrestling, struggling, destruction going on. Bad people are doing horrible things to good people, and good people aren't doing much better. And Habakkuk says, you know, God, I don't get it. I know who you are because I know your story, and I know the story of my parents and my parents' parents, my parents' 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 parents. I know the storyline, but as I sit here today, I got to be honest. What I feel in my heart doesn't match with what I see. And I wonder, God, why you're not doing more. If you're really God, why don't you fix this? And so Habakkuk comes to a real struggle, and what he actually does is he wrestles with God. And that's actually what Habakkuk means. His name actually means embrace or wrestle. Or maybe you're from the South and it's wrestle. But whatever it is, he's about to wrestle with God. Did I hear him preaching? There we go. Because He's going, I don't know what to do with this, God. I got to admit, I'm a little bit angry at you. I'm really angry at everybody else. But I'm confused because if you're God, why don't you step in and do something? This is a terrible time, and my friends are struggling. They're dealing with horrible things, and I love you, and I love to sing How Great Is Our God, but when I leave here, I kind of wrestle going, God, if you really are great, why isn't everything else great? How do I deal with this dissension? And I want to share up front with you, this will not be a sitcom sermon. I don't know what sitcoms you watched with your kids when they were growing up, whether it was the Brady Bunch or Happy Days, or maybe you weren't like my family. You let your kids watch Three's Company. That was way too off guard for our family. We weren't allowed to watch that one. But you watch the sitcoms, and a sitcom, what it was a situation comedy. The show would open up, and they'd have a little music in the beginning. They'd have laugh tracks throughout the 30 minutes of filming. They'd start the series with some real tension. There was something big going on. You know, Cindy was upset about something, or Fonzie had an issue. There was some kind of major issue going on. Or you're watching the Cosby Show, and there's a struggle with the middle daughter, and they really build it up. And throughout the half hour, they wrestle through it. They go up and down, and it's so nice. And by the end, everything's perfect, and it all gets fixed. It gets a nice tidy bow on it, and it wraps up, and they all kiss, and they hug, and they say, I love you. And 30 minutes, even with commercials, it's fixed. This sermon will not be fixed. You're going to walk away from here maybe with more questions you had walking, and you're saying, thank you very much, Scott. But I got to be honest with you, there are struggles that Habakkuk had, and in these 3 chapters, we'll see that it's a really difficult time for Habakkuk. Maybe it's a difficult time for you. Maybe you're wondering, not out loud because that wouldn't be proper, God, why aren't you fixing this? Someone says, can I pray for anything? You say, yes, please pray for this. And you act all polite, but you walk away saying, God, I know we prayed, but I'm wondering if you'll answer this one because you didn't answer the last one. I'm kind of concerned because I've been praying for this for a long time, and I wonder if this person's ever going to get better. And my good friend just died, so God, where were you in that? And this little kid is struggling with disease. God, why would you let that happen? God, how do I deal with this? Habakkuk, in the very first verse, it says the prophecy that Habakkuk the prophet received. That word prophecy also is the word oracle. It is a word in the Hebrew that is masah. It's a word that is given to Habakkuk from God, but it's probably better described as an utterance, a doom, a burden that God tells Habakkuk to go tell the people. It's not a good news kind of message. It's a difficult time. And as one of the minor prophets, Habakkuk does something that's not normally done. He turns back to God and says, God, I don't get it. I don't understand. God, I don't know how to deal with this. He basically gets back in God's face, which might not seem very religious or very okay even in a Christian world. You may struggle wondering, would it be okay for me to even question? Because He is God. Let's not forget, He is God, and He's the one who I worship. He's the one who I'm totally subservient to. I don't know if you see the new marketing thing is He is greater than I. He is God. I am not God. But there's got to be a place in my heart where I have to be honest and say, sometimes I sit and I go, God, what's going on? And Habakkuk looks back at God and he says this, why do you tolerate wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. There's strife and conflict abounds. And God, I don't get it. I don't understand. Why is it happening like this? Why don't you do something? Why is it that my grandkid is going to school and I'm scared for their safety? God, why do you allow... That's not a pro-gun or anti-gun lobby. That's not what Sunday morning is about. It's an anti-evil message, right? God, why would evil people come in and take life so lightly they would take and they shoot individuals? God, that doesn't make sense. I hate that. But God, if I'm honest, I don't really understand why you as God of the universe don't just fix that. This is not beyond you to say, I squelch that. So, what's going on? Then he says, God, the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, and justice is perverted. He basically says this about God. 3 things he says to God, and we'll summarize it. This is your Cliff Notes version you can walk away with. First, it says, God, you don't seem to care. I got to be honest, God, it seems like to me, as Habakkuk, in the middle of this dark time, it looks to me like you don't care. You're letting all these things go on in the world, and I'm wondering why you don't do anything about it. Secondly, he says, God, a second complaint I have is you not only do not care, you aren't doing much when you could. God, he's giving God respect and saying, God, I believe you're all powerful, but I'm wondering, since you don't care, why don't you do something when you could? I know you could do something, but you're not doing something, so what do I do with this? And number 3, we've already talked about the big question, what you're doing doesn't seem fair. God, I just got to sit here and be honest. You've given me a message, and you told me now to go and tell the people. Before I tell the people, I got to let you know this. You don't seem to care. I wonder why you don't do anything when you really could, and it just doesn't seem fair. See, fair is like that 3rd grader who comes to the cafeteria worker who has 1 popsicle left and says, can I have that popsicle? And she says, oh, no, I can't give it to you because I give it to you, it wouldn't be fair because I can't give it to all the other kids. And the kid is saying, but there's no one here watching. It's just me and you, right? Can we do a deal here? Can I pay you for that? Can I somehow get that popsicle? And you're saying it's not fair, it makes you really struggle. Why don't you? People are crying out, God, would you do something? And you may wonder, okay, is that really okay? Well, if you read through the Psalms, you'll find that about 1/3 of the Psalms are filled up with people, primarily David, saying, God, why don't you do something? God, why don't you bash their teeth in? I'm so tired of these people. Would you do something? God, why do I have to cry all night long? He said, my tears flood my bed. I think, okay, David, suck it up. Be a man, right? But he's just overwhelmed and saying, God, I don't know why don't you fix this? Why don't you do something? God, where are you? Why are you silent? Why don't you ever show up? He's really complaining harsh. Maybe like you do in your private. Wondering, God, where are you? I love you, God, but I don't get this. You read the book of Lamentations, the laments, all kinds of complaints. You read through Job and you see this godly man who when his life falls apart, he finds himself saying, God, why did you do this? Why don't you help me? His friends were kind of pushing him along that way, but he wound up there for a while. Or maybe it's like the New Testament. Guard this, but Jesus on the cross, having lived a perfect life, being fully God and yet fully Scott too, didn't sin, and yet he took my sin upon him, your sin upon him, and at some point in the middle of that, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Because God seems to have turned his back upon the sin, my sin upon him. And Jesus felt all alone. He cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Without sin, but struggling. He even, the night before, said, God, if there's any other way that you let this cup pass, would you find something else? But not my will. Your will be done. And that's kind of my life. I want to show you a picture here. You'll see this picture on the slide here. This is maybe what your life looks like. This is a very polite picture. It doesn't really look like this. Your life may look like this, right? It's kind of all over the place. And when life is going up, man, things with God are really, really good. And God is there. And you worship Him. You're like driving through the parking lot. God, give me a parking spot, please. Thank you, Jesus. There's the spot. You're so good. You care for even this. And there are other times when you think, God, why aren't you showing up? God, I'm in this pit. I don't see you. I'm wondering where you're at. You know the truth that He's never left you. You know that here. But here you're going, I'm struggling with this, God. I'm really struggling because I don't see you, and I'm wondering why you don't care. That's Habakkuk. That's us. And there's a point in my life when, and all of us had that point where somewhere along the line, you met Jesus. I don't know where it was, whether it was in a church growing up, it was in a Sunday school class or a camp as a young person. Maybe it was as an adult when you moved to a new community and someone was bold enough to share about Jesus with you. Or maybe you were cruising through life and life was perfect. You were in your 50s and you were ready to settle down and you pulled your RV into this jojoba or to this place, and you found there was a church event on Sunday morning. You said, well, that's kind of weird. I'm not going to church. I'm dead okay my whole life. But you walked in and something happened. It was different. It wasn't religion. It was about Jesus. You said, man, I need that guy. And you wanted a relationship with him. And you actually said, Jesus, would you come into my life? Would you forgive me and give me a new start? And it was like life was all new again. It was brand new. And you're like, I'm on an upswing. And you started praying, and God heard your prayers, and it was like He answered them, and you saw Him, and you felt Him, and He was there for everything. It wasn't just a prayer before a meal. It was like, this is really talking with Him. And it's like, it's never been better than this. Right now, we shared about your funds going to help missionaries. Our friend and your friend OJ, Alles Mozon, is right now in Burkina Faso. And he's sharing with West Africans about Jesus. And there's individuals who are moving out to start churches because they were trained by OJ. We sent OJ there. He's training leaders, West Africans, who will now go start churches. And people who've never even heard the name of Jesus will hear it. So you may have heard Jesus when you were growing up in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that you were that kind of child of those decades. But some people, for the first time, are hearing about Him, and their life has changed. But somewhere along the line for you and for me, life just kind of kept going. And I had a good friend of mine say that, with problems, either one of three situations. You're either right in the middle of a problem, you're just getting out of a problem, or you're about to move into a problem. I thought, I don't like either of those options. I like the leaving a problem, that means I might be going into a new one. I'm in one of three places. And as I go through problems, I find myself wondering, God, you were so real, and now you're not so real. And I'm wondering what I do with this. When that happens, Henry Blackaby from Experiencing God calls this a crisis of faith. He calls it a crisis of belief. And you're wondering, God, I believe this, but I'm in a crisis now because even though I believe it in my heart, what I see with my eyes don't match what I believe in my heart. And so I'm wondering where you are. And I tend to go one of two directions. I either say, God, I know you are real and you're there, and I don't believe all these bad things are really even going to stay along for long, so I'm just going to I just want to go back to the way it used to be, in the new time. I want to go back to when I was first a Christian. I wanted that kind of early faith. I want a simple faith. I just want that. I want to go back. Or, God, I gave you a chance, and you screwed up, so forget you. I'm going to go back. I'm going to jump back in the driver's seat of my life, and I'm going to maintain this because I've been doing okay, even though it's really been a mess in my life. I got to admit that. But I'm going to drive again because I don't like what you're doing. So forget you, God. I push you aside. Either I want to go back or I want to just leave you. And even going back is kind of denying the things that I'm going to say, these things are going to get better tomorrow. I just trust because you're God, it's going to get better tomorrow. But things don't always get better tomorrow. So we have to go to the third option, which is where Habakkuk really is. God, I don't get it, but I'm going to wrestle with you. I'm going to hold tight. I'm going to grab on you, and I'm not letting go. I'm not happy. And I'd like to say if you do this, everything's going to get better tomorrow. It may not. In fact, it may get worse. But if you hang on to God, if you say, God, I'm not letting you go. I'm not letting go no matter what. He's promised He won't let us go. I'm not saying that things are going to get better tomorrow because they might get worse tomorrow and worse the week after that. But somewhere along the line, God will bring you through the process and you'll wind up on the other side. And you might not wind up on the other side until you wind up in heaven. I'm not going to make any bold promises that aren't true. God hasn't promised that life's going to always be better. But He promised that He'll walk you through it. And the crazy thing is that as you walk through it, you'll find yourself closer to God than you've ever been before. I've got a good friend named Chase. This morning, the church that I go to when I'm not here is a church called Anthem. It's a daughter church plant from the church that I was a part of, Daybreak. And Chase and his wife Lauren have gone off to start the church. And when they decided to go do the church and be the pastors, we said, hey, you've been my son's youth pastor. You're about the same age that I was when I planted a church. I didn't know anything. You seem a lot smarter than I was at that age. But man, we'd love to go help you. So we left a great, big, healthy church and went to a brand new baby church. We said, we'd love to help because, man, Chase, you love my kid, Jake, and I just want to come alongside and help you. The day Chase announced to the church that they were going to plant a church sometime in the next year, his wife the next week, the next Tuesday, was diagnosed with cancer. And I found myself saying, God, what in the... I mean, I didn't say it out loud, but God, what is going on here? Here's Chase and Lauren. They're giving up everything to go follow you, and what in the world is going on? God, I know that you're God. I know that you're a loving God, but this doesn't make sense to me. This doesn't make sense. And it didn't make sense to Chase and Lauren. But they hung on to God. They embraced. And Chase shared with me that was the hardest season of his life. Now, Chase is only 40 years old, 35 years old, I think. But he said, this is the hardest season. He said, we wept and we wept. And we just were broken down. It was just a horrible season. I looked at my kids and I wondered, will I have to raise my kids without my wife by my side? I don't know how I'll do that. They put the church plan on hold. They said, time out. We're not going to plant a church right now. We're just going to try and hold on as a family. You know, I talked with Chase last week, and he said, you know, Scott, the crazy thing is, I've never been as close to God as I was during that time. It doesn't make sense, but that season was a time he said, I was so close, we were so intimate with God, we just held on. There were nights where we just sat in our room and we just cried. We were praying to God, but we were crying, saying, God, I don't understand. Will you fix this? My wife going through therapy and struggling, wondering, God, will you turn this out good? So if you're in the middle of a struggle wondering, God, I'm not sure where you are, the option is to go back, to leave God, or to hang on and say, God, I'm not going to let go of you. In the book of James, Jesus' brother, how would it be to be Jesus' brother? Would that be rough? Jesus is your big brother? Why can't you be more? Well, never mind. But James, the brother of Jesus, writes this. Consider it great joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you experience various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. That's kind of an oxymoron. God, I want to have joy when I go through hard times. That's not normally my first response. But James says, consider it joy when you experience various trials, because you know the testing of your faith produces endurance. And endurance will have its full effect, so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. You will lack nothing as you go through hard times and you hang on to God. You'll actually experience endurance. And endurance will finish its work, and you'll be mature, not lacking anything. That's what Habakkuk wants to wind up. But Habakkuk is in chapter 1. Chapter 1 is not easy. In chapter 1, you're wondering, God, where are you? God, why don't you fix this? Why have you given me this horrible news about my friend, about my wife, about myself? Why aren't you fixing this? God, where are you? And I'm wondering if you're really there. Now, Habakkuk wanted to hear from God. And so God spoke to him. If you look in verse 5 there in your notes, it says, look, here's God's words, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. He's saying, Habakkuk, I hear you. I'm going to speak to you. Look at the nations. I want you to watch this because you're going to be so freaked out about what I'm about to say. For I'm going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if I would. Even if you were told. You're not going to believe what I say. When I tell you this, you're going to be like a 3-year-old going, I can't believe this, God. That was what Habakkuk basically said. God said, that's what you're going to do. You're going to stomp off and say, I can't believe you're doing this, God. I'm going to tell you, God, are you sure that you're doing this? Because it doesn't make sense to me. He says, look at the people and be utterly amazed. And then he says this, I am raising up the Babylonians. Now, you don't get this probably. When you hear the word Babylonians, you ought to think, I hate those people. We don't boo in church. But this would be a place to boo. Boo. That's what people say. When he was going to go tell them about the Babylonians, and God said, I'm going to raise the Babylonians, they'd say, there's no way. We hate those people. Those are bad people. Boo. We don't like them. But God says, I'm going to raise up the Babylonians. And then he says this, the ruthless and impetuous people. So even God admits, hey, I'm going to get the Babylonians. Remember the guys who are ruthless and impetuous. Those people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are feared and dreaded people. They are a law to themselves and promote their own honor. Their horses are swifter than leopards. Fiercer than wolves at dusk. Their cavalry gallops headlong. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle swooping to devour. They all come intent on violence. Here's the cliff notes. You're not very good. These people are worse. I'm going to take the worst people. I'm going to have them come in and they're going to destroy you. I'm going to allow them, I'm going to use them to destroy you. And Habakkuk just says, that's not right, God. That doesn't make, like you're saying, that doesn't sound like God. That's like I disregard this false message. Fake news. But he's saying, I'm going to use these people to destroy you. And it doesn't make sense. But it's chapter 1. And in chapter 1, you find yourself saying, God, where are you? What are you doing? Why would you say something so crazy? It's not chapter 2 yet, it's chapter 1. And in chapter 1, you find yourself saying, God, I've got a lot of questions for you. I don't understand. I'm wondering if you're the same God I've been worshiping all this time. I wonder if I understand who you are. And I wonder if I like you when I hear this, see this side of you. It doesn't seem like the God I've heard about. God is great, God is good, let us thank him for our food. I like that God. I don't like this God who says, look at the Babylonians. I'm going to use them to destroy you. Can a deeply committed person have deep faith in God and at the same time ask God hard questions? I guess if you hear much of what I say today, I'd love you to hear this. A deeply committed believer can express simultaneous questions and faith. You can have questions and faith at the same time and believe in God and love God and know God, even though they're saying, God, I don't get it, and I'm wondering why you're not doing something. Because it's chapter 1. It's like Mark chapter 9 when Jesus said, do you believe? And the man said, yeah, I believe, help me with my unbelief. That's like an oxymoron, right? I believe, but help me with my unbelief. That's where we walk sometimes, saying, God, I believe you, but would you help me with my unbelief? Because I'm not sure that I really believe it. I'm saying it, and I want to believe it, and know it, and believe it, but I'm wrestling. I'm really struggling. And I really am in a full-on grapple with you, and I'm not going to let go of you, but I want to push back because I don't get this. I know I can't beat you because you're God, but I just don't understand. I'm angry and frustrated, and I don't know what to do. So verse 12, he says, O Lord, are you not from everlasting? My God and my Holy One, we will not die. So he says, God, I know who you are. You're an awesome God. How great is our God? How great is our God? How great is our God? He's just giving God praise, saying, God, you're awesome. I know that even if I get wiped out, and all my contemporaries get wiped out, and my children and my children's children, still there'll be a generation that will come back. And you'll take care of me. You'll walk with me through this difficult time. I know you won't leave me. Even though I don't get it, I know that you're a good God and you're for everlasting. But at the same time, he says this, O Lord, you've appointed them to execute judgment. O Rock, you've ordained them to punish. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. You cannot tolerate wrong. Why then do you tolerate the Babylonians? Why do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? God, I believe, but I'm really struggling with this. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense, and I'm really having a hard time here. It's chapter 1. I'm wondering. Chapter 2, you begin waiting. You say that and you wait. And you wait. And sometimes you wait some more. And you wonder, God, why isn't this fixed? I believe, but I'm waiting, I'm still kind of wondering, too, what you're going to do here. But I'm not going to let go. I'm going to hang on. I'm going to wonder. I'm going to wait. I'm going to talk it out with you. I'm going to wrestle with you because I believe if you are who you say you are, and I know you are who you say you are, even though I don't feel it right now, I believe, God, help me with my unbelief. I'm going to hold on. I'm not going to let go. I'm going to walk through the wonder. I'm going to walk through the waiting. And I'm going to get to the end point where there'll come a point, and I know there's going to come a point where I will get to chapter 3, and I'll worship. So I want to start worshiping now, even in the waiting stage. And at first, I'm just going to kind of sing it, even though I don't really feel it. I'm going to say it, even though I may not fully believe it. But I know it. I want to move from wondering to waiting to worshiping. Now, if this were a sitcom, I'd wrap it up right now with a nice bow and go home and feel good, but you're going to go home and not feel so good. Because that's how I've been wrestling this week, going, but how do I wrap this up? Well, the message is, will you hold on? Are you willing to wrestle? Are you willing to get some friends who will tag team and hold on for you? You may say, you know what, I can't hold on anymore, but I need someone to help me hold on. I need help in this because I'm overwhelmed. I'm wondering, God, why you're not doing it. But I trust you, so I'm going to hold on. I'm not going to let go. I'm not going to let go. And I know that as I stay with you, you won't let go of me. And I see our prayer requests this week, and there's a whole lot of wrestling going on. Things that don't make sense intellectually. Things that you may find yourself wondering, God, why? You can fix that tomorrow, God. Why didn't you fix that yet? But God's saying, I'm going to allow you to go through this difficult season. I didn't necessarily put it there, but I'm going to allow you to go through this season. And through this season, I'm going to, you won't believe what I'll do in your life. As you hold on to me, you'll be closer to me than you've ever been before. And you'll see things differently as you walk to the other side. And you'll trust me. Because I've read the last page. I know what happens at the end. Every knee bows, every tongue will worship. And so even if I lose on this stage, even if I lose the battle, I don't lose the war. Because the war is being with God forever. And so God, I'm going to trust you even though I don't like this right now. In fact, I even dislike this. God, I got to be honest. I'm not even sure I like you very much. Oh, wait, no, I do, God. I love you, right? But I get in that wrestling match and I find friends who can help remind me of how good God is. Would you pray with me? God, I come before you. We come before you as people who, in this chapel, God, we see names on this prayer list and we're connected with them. They're people we love. And God, if we were in charge, things would have been different in some of these situations. We would work them out differently. We don't understand why it's not working out the way that we want it to work out. But we trust that you're God. And we're going to wrestle and hang on no matter what, God. We're going to stay in this wondering place and move through the waiting time. We want to get to a place where we worship. So God, we want to begin to even act in that now. Here's what I'm asking you to do. As I close in prayer here, I'm going to ask you to do something very bold and kind of dangerous. But to begin to worship God. Even for that situation that's in your mind right now, you're saying, yeah, that's my situation. If you're willing to say, God, I will wrestle and I will hold on. I'm not going to let go even though I struggle in this area. Would you do a physical act right now in your body that'll tell God, and mainly it'll tell yourself, that you're going to say, God, I'm going to wrestle with you and I'm going to worship you even though I don't like where I'm at right now. If that's where as we're praying with everyone with their eyes closed, just kind of a baby step, but a starting step. Would you just put your hands up in the air? Because in putting your hands up, you're basically saying, God, I give up, I surrender, and I'm going to tell you that I'm going to worship you. So if you're willing to do that, would you just put your hands up? And when you say, God, I will worship you even during this difficult time. And I'll trust, God, that you're going to work it out. Even though I don't know how that's going to happen, I will trust you. God, I need your help. I believe. Would you help me with my unbelief? Would you help me to embrace you, to wrestle with you, to hang on no matter what? Surround me with friends who will help me. And God, as I struggle in my mind, would you remind me of your love? I thank you, God, that we will walk through this together, that you'll never leave me, you'll never forsake me. And so I'm telling you, God, that I trust you. Help me as I don't trust you. Do something mighty, God. God, I thank you for these people, for my friends. Thank you that you're a God who's with us even when we struggle. You promise to never leave us. So may we see glimpses, just snapshots of you by our side. Bring friends who could be you for us. And help us to hold tightly to you, even when we want to tell you to go away. God, we don't mean that. My friends who do mean that, God, I ask that you would break their heart in a new way. Remind them of how much you love them. Protect them from people, well-intentioned people who say nice, religious things to them that don't make sense. Protect their ears, God, and turn them back to you, to hold on to you, to wrestle with you, even when it's hard. Thank you for your love. In Jesus' name. Here's the good news about God not being fair. It's good that he's not fair. Because if he were fair, I wouldn't have a chance. His love reaches down and grabs me when I'm in rebellion. He loves me, and he gives me an offer that I don't deserve. He gives his son for me. That's so not a fair trade. But that's how much he loves you. That you might be able to sing, God is the strength of my heart forever and ever. So here's the challenge. Would you be willing to wrestle? To hold on, embrace, and struggle, and even tell God when you think he's not fair. But wrestle. Don't just tell him that and leave. Stay there with him and say, God, would you fix this? Would you help me understand? Chapter 2, would you move to a place of waiting? Because you will come to chapter 3. As you walk through this season, he'll get you to a place of saying, God, you've been my strength, and I love you. That doesn't mean it's easy in chapter 1. It's still almost impossible in chapter 1. But he's the same God who is here, and he'll walk you through that. So maybe this week you want to read Habakkuk. Read chapter 2, read chapter 3. It's a short book, and may you wrestle with the God who loves you and wants to draw you to him and be your strength forever and ever.